All right, I think we're gonna get started here. All right, so welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us from wherever you are. For those of you that don't know, Rob is my uncle and head coach at Richmond Hill Canoe Club. I'm his niece, Courtney Stott, national team athlete and apprentice coach. So we will be delivering a series of webinars, or Stotnars, as we like to call them, to you, the paddling community, on various topics throughout the year. Tonight's topic is around shaping your team's culture by focusing on what each member already has, which is their strengths. And by strengths, we don't mean physical strengths, which many of you may know that my uncle here is very interested in the more performance side of things. Yeah.
Ouch. I wasn't expecting that. We didn't rehearse that. So I guess with respect to topics, we have the physical system versus the human system, and you're probably right. I think a lot of coaches are like me in that regard, where we like let's do a deep dive on GA1 or speed development or strength training, all the fun stuff. But Courtney kept coming back to culture, and she's the apprentice, so she got to win out. So this culture leadership territory is quite vast, so we dug pretty heavily into it, and we found this lady here from Michigan, Maureen, listened to some podcasts and liked her message, and we reached out to her, and she had such a great, prompt and enthusiastic response. She had us doing an assessment later that day. We met on Zoom the next day, and we've gone back and forth. We met again this week. So I love her personality and her passion for what she does, and just the approach really resonates with me for sure, because at my age and stage, I don't need to worry about remediating or fixing myself. I can just be fully me, and that's a lot more fun. So I love it.
Yes, and just to mention, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat.
Yeah, Haley's gonna scrutinize the questions and pick the best ones.
Yeah, for the end, we'll answer those. So yeah, I think with starting my apprentice coach program, I found that I've always been coming back to the how of coaching rather than the what. And I think that's a big part of building team culture. So with that, we are excited to finally introduce our guest, Maureen Monte, leadership and team consultant, an author, and so much more. Maureen, we both read your book, Destination Unstoppable, and we could just feel how passionate you are about what you do and helping others leverage their strengths within a team environment. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into the role you're in today, and your approach to building better, high-performing teams.
Well, great. Yes, thank you. First of all, I'm thrilled to be here. Anytime I can talk to coaches or athletes, it's a good day. And my history is a little weird. And by the way, enough of the remarks about age.
No.
And now you can be yourself. So can a teenager, right? So, but yes, and I'm sure I'm the senior person, but we'll leave it there. Anyhow, I have a background in engineering and leadership, but I was never a very good engineer, even when I was fully employed as an engineer. But not only that, 1 year I was IBM's Engineer of the Year, and it was always about solving people problems. I was never good about the mechanical stuff, right? So I really enjoyed helping individuals and teams reach their full potential, and I liked it when it was complex and challenging. Like I worked in Paris for a year, and I was the only American and the only female, the technical female, right? So I like that kind of challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I was an athlete growing up. And so then I got a master's degree in leadership, and for the first time took the Strength Finder. That was in 2006, and instantly began using the Strength Finder as a tool to measure the talent on the team so we could put the talent to good use. So from 2006 to 2015, I just worked in the corporate world. I didn't do anything with athletes in terms of the Strength Finder and teams. And then I got my first opportunity, and that's when I worked with a high school boys hockey team. And I still do a lot of work with corporations and nonprofits, but my preference is highly motivated teams that are willing to work hard, people that are willing to work hard. And I find that in athletes, entrepreneurs. I do some work with the military, committed to the mission.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So why do you use a strength-based approach? What's the advantage there?
So in my mind, the advantage of a strength-based approach, there's two things. And I live in America, I live in Michigan, and we are a deficit-based society. With the best of intentions, we focus on what's wrong with people in an effort to help them reach their full potential. And that means we're taking something they're not good at, and we want to make them excellent at that. And that isn't how it works. If we want greatness, we have to take what's already good about them and harness that, right? And we need to make sure our weaknesses don't undermine us. But if I came home with 3 A's and a D in school, the parents are upset about a D. And if the D's in French, it's unlikely I'm going to be a French teacher someday, or the best French teacher in the world. But what if I've got 3 A's and something else? Well, let's harness all that greatness, fix the D so it doesn't prevent me from getting to wherever I want to go. But there's a survival strategy, the stuff at the bottom, your weaknesses, and there's a success strategy, the stuff you do naturally well. And I think I mentioned to you the other day, we're better at training dogs, right? How come there aren't any chihuahuas that are leading the dogs around, leading blind people around? I have a school near me that takes dogs and creates leader dogs. And I don't see any chihuahuas, right? So we take a dog that already have the talent and we make good use of the talent, right? Sports is a natural strength-based system. We don't take a goalie and have them practice scoring goals. We have the goalie prevent goals. And they already have a proclivity for that. Right. But the strength finder approach that I like is, the reason I use a strength finder is it measures talent on the inside. And I've got a slide that basically says the inner greatness fuels the external greatness. It's a system of inputs and outputs. We focus on the outputs. How fast can you skate? How many goals did you score? How many blah, blah, blah. But we need to spend equal amount of time on understanding and harnessing the greatness within the person that fuels the external greatness. And I believe the strength finder does that better than anybody else, any other tool.
Right. So do we want to get into those slides then?
Sure. Are you guys good for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does she have share power?
Let's see.
Really? Can you give her share power?
I do.
She's got the share power.
I have the share power. Thank you so much, guys. Can you see that?
There's the book, yeah.
There it is. So that is my book, Destination Unstoppable, The Journey of No Teammate Left Behind. I build winning teams. And while you can do everything right and still lose. If we have teams that are united and fully appreciate all the talent on the team to overcome obstacles and achieve big goals, that is how we build a winning team. I do the same thing in the corporate world. So wins, I don't care. I don't care if you win or lose. I want you to reach your full potential. But I have been doing it for a while with sports teams and athletes, including a Canadian women's foil team that went to the Olympics. If the world runs on teams, and I believe they do, why do so few reach their full potential? So my goal is to help teams reach their full potential by focusing on the inputs that drive the outputs, the greatness.
Right.
And an upcoming book separately, it's called the Win Like a Girl Project. Since I've worked with over 1,000 athletes, male and female, I've created a separate program called Win Like a Girl, because I've discovered that men and women take a different path to victory in general. And I've taken my Destination Unstoppable program, added material to the core of it on top of the Strength Finder that focuses on overcoming fear, because I've found that is a bigger challenge, at least even at the Olympic level, it was a bigger challenge. So that's the difference between Destination Unstoppable and Win Like a Girl, but they're both the system. It's the same system. And I like systems, because if you have a system, then you can read that book and you can follow the system.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to share that.
Okay.
It's very simple, and I've already said it. The greatness on the inside fuels the greatness on the outside. It also determines, and we're all different, how hard we work, how hard we compete. Not that competing and working hard are not the same. Be a great teammate. Everybody does that differently. React to pressure. We all react differently to pressure, and respond to coaching. So when we understand that internal motor, that greatness on the inside, we better understand how to speak to the to the coach and speak to the athlete to get the very best out of them. And I believe the Strength Finder is the best at measuring the vast cosmos of greatness that's within people. It's so complex. And the Strength Finder, I think, does a good job of that. And I'll show you more why here in just a second. A little bit of an overview about the book. I get a phone call when I help a boys hockey team, high school hockey team, talented but struggling. I was like, I'm all in. So this is all I did. I asked them what success looked like. They said, win the state championship. I said, of course, everyone wants to win the state championship. And then I got to them about what do championship behaviors look like, because we can only control the behaviors. And so they defined full effort, brotherhood, focus, discipline, things they were not actually demonstrating, but they knew that they should be doing. But now we have a success statement that they committed to, 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. A more advanced concept that I use with all my teams, sport and otherwise. Are you willing to commit to a team trust bank? Every time a coach and an athlete speak, two athletes speak to coaches, your extended team, both people leave that exchange with a thumbs up or a thumbs down. There's no neutral. There's no neutral conversation. I might speak to Courtney and think it was great. Courtney might think it was terrible. That is not a deposit in the team trust bank for Courtney. That's a withdrawal. So your trust bank is the culmination, the sum of all the interactions you have with one another as a team.
Leave it on there. Let's turn that
What's
off.
that?
No point.
Oh, jeez. I think someone should go on mute.
Everybody should be muted,
Yeah.
I think, but anyway.
Thank you for sharing. I'm like, I already thought I was in trouble, which would be normal. And they committed for 6 weeks, because that's how much time was left between when we started in the state championship. They committed to making deposits only, which was a big difference. There was a lot of conflict on that team. I had them turn to one another and say, I refuse to let you fail. And what all that is a accountability statement. If I commit to be on time for practice every day and I'm not, then a captain can come to me and say, you committed to being on time every day. So I'm going to text you every day, an hour before practice, and you're going to be there on time. It can be used as an accountability tool. The trust bank is as well, because if you're late, that's not a deposit, that's a withdrawal. And finally, the Strength Finder, which you don't have to do Strength Finder. I think you should, because talent's hard to describe and it's hard to discern from the outside. But if you did those three things, combined with some structured dialogue that I've created, that's also described in the book, your team will be better off. It's a simple fact. That is an investment in the human system of success. So what happened? The boys played the next 10 of 11 games, won them all, won the next 10 of 11, lost the first one, and outscored the competition 67 goals to 16 and won the state championship 4-0. And they played like a pack of wolves. I want teams to play like a pack of wolves. And to play like a pack, you got to have the unity and purpose of a pack. And that comes from the human system. So I was thrilled for them. And I thought, wow, this works pretty well with athletes. But here's the funny thing. When I interviewed the boys for the book, and you guys have mentioned this as well, I've been reading it, nobody spoke about hoisting the trophy. They were relieved to have the team reach its full potential. And they spoke about Nolan. Nolan was nobody. He was the third string goalie who never played in a game. And he was sitting dormant on the bench for 3 months. But it turns out Nolan was one of the few people on the team with the talent of harmony, and it finds common ground, consensus. And once we saw that, when we had all these ruffled feathers with 18 boys with competition, by the way, which is a lot of horsepower out of 22. So who's the bad guy then? The guy sitting next to you because you want to be on the first line and you're on the second, or the team down the street. So when there was conflict, Nolan stepped in and helped the team get from the me of winning to the we of winning. And he owned that role. He was treated like a team captain for that role. And that's the benefit of harnessing untapped talent on the team. And you can't harness it if you don't measure it. So it's just a subset, kind of a little mini example of what happens when we find talent on the team. Your fully exploited strengths are far greater value than your marginally improved weaknesses. We already discussed that America's a deficit-based society. The Strength Finder measures 34 different ways you are great in how you think, which we cannot see, how you get stuff done, how you build relationships, form bonds, and how you influence or push people to do something they wouldn't do otherwise. Jessica was a 13-year-old who joined the fencing team when I started in 2019. And for her to join, somebody else had to leave. And it caused a lot of strife, and rightly so. It was a very close team. And one of the strengths that Jessica had was she needed to know why we were doing something. And when she would ask why, one of her coaches took that as kind of an affront and a challenge that he didn't know what he was talking about. And that wasn't it at all. She just has a talent that needs to know why. And so once we understood that, he could give her what she needed. She got what she needed. And last year, in April of 2021, 2 years after we started working together, she took gold in the U17 World Championship. She took bronze in the U20, and she was 15 at the time. And it has gone on to obviously and continues to be very, very successful. So, and we just harnessed the talent, understood it, harnessed it, helped her use it. Right.
What was interesting about the hockey team, I don't know if, well, no, you're gonna get into it now. Okay.
No, oh, go ahead. What were you gonna ask me?
I was just saying like how competitive they were. They were
Yeah.
high competitive.
Yep.
And I refuse to let you fail. That accountability to each other got them to not fight each other because they were fighting each other, and they recognized they had a common enemy, right? And that was
right.
the team. So
right, and that's the challenge. This is that boys hockey team. So that I'm going to show you 2 slides here, and then we're almost done, and we'll answer questions. But this is if we took all the athletes' strengths. Each one had top 5. So let's say that there were 25. We threw everybody's strengths in a bucket. That would be 125 strengths. They break down into 18% are thinking energy, thinking to solve problems. 19% are relating, bonding. That is not very much compared to the general population. 31% is battling. This is I want to win. I want the trophy because it's most important. I seek excellence, like you do, Coach Stott with Maximizer. I'm confident. And then 32% is get it done. So the difference between most male athlete teams and female athlete teams can be summarized as follows. The male athletes battle as a team to bond as a team. They are battling and they work hard. The relationships, not so much, the thinking, not so much. But the relationships must be valued. But the women, this is a women's championship team. The battling goes to very low, right? The thinking's low. I call it all hard work and love. But they bond as a team in order to battle as a team. So getting a female team fully unified, and that includes the coaches, is important. It's their Moneyball for success. So now there's always exceptions. I worked with an entrepreneur today from the University of Michigan who has more battling talent. I think there's only 2 other people on earth that I've worked with in the corporate world and the sport world that were wired like her. So she's ready to take over the world, and watch out for her. So she's unusual. Most would fall into this category. A lot of green bonding talent, work hard, some thinking, not a ton, and they don't have that I'll rip your face off to win energy that some of the male athletes have.
can you go back to the male one again?
Yeah.
Just
So they both got about the same amount of tasks, get it done, purple.
Yeah.
A little more thinking, a lot less relating, by more than half, right? They have not even half the amount of bonding talent, and they have double the amount of battling talent as the women.
You characterize the women as hard work and love. How would you characterize the boys here?
Hard work and fight.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's just a different path. And you're going to find one of the best captains I ever worked with. His top 5 strengths, and when you take the strength finder, you get your top 5 or all 34, were green. There, he was full of human glue. He was an outstanding captain. Huh. So you're going to have people that are different. It's just to bring it all. and help the team win. All talent is valuable and can help the team win. So that's your typical women's profile. And the all teams vary a little bit, but it's in that same realm overall, right? And then just so that people can see, this is the top 5 strengths of our tremendous hosts, Courtney and Coach Rob. And you can see the words there. Courtney has a common relationship building strength where there's a small close circle of friends, right? This restorative is a funny name for gritty, never quitting, tenacious people. It's the #1 female strength out of the 505 females that I'm using in my Win Like a Girl book. It's #1.
In athletes, female athletes.
Female athletes.
Okay.
Yes. It's
And-
#2 for male athletes.
And Maureen, I'm just the context of Strength Finder, how many of these have been done worldwide? How many millions are they up to now?
They're over 26 million.
Yeah, so there's a big, vast database.
Big, vast database.
Yeah.
And I've got, as a certified coach, I've got lots of inside information on that. And the bottom line is athletes, both male and female, are wired differently than the regular population. And one of the goals of Win Like a Girl is to help female athletes understand that this awesome hard work and love is really helpful in the workplace. And we should be connecting the dots better for both. I do it with both male and female athletes, but we should help female athletes connect the dots to greatness in the sport journey, to greatness in life. People want to hire people like Courtney. So
Yeah, I mentioned to a coach the other day about Courtney maybe getting into coaching, which, I mean, despite my best efforts to dissuade her along that path, she still seems intent on
make
it.
a
But
great coach.
the coach said to me, "When can I hire her?" Like, he was just like, he wants to hire her right away. I go, you got to wait a couple of years, but so you're totally right.
Good to know.
It is. And whether you stay in sport, athletic stuff or not, right? There's a study out there that I'm including in Win Like a Girl that is with hundreds of C-suite female executives, CEO, CTO, technology, CIO, information, CFO, finance. A ginormous number of them are athletes, former athletes.
Mhm.
And they want to hire female athletes. They know how to win. They don't quit. They're good team builders. That's what they want. So there's you two. And then Rob, you can see these, we've got 2 people, no strengths in common, which is not that unusual for
Good
just the
opposite.
top 5. What?
We're opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of opposite. And Rob is seeking perfection, is creative outside the box. People might find that a little disruptive, but it's very, very helpful to have. And the key thing about the thinking strengths is you got to communicate that movie inside your head. No one can see it. And because we assume people see what we see, we assume, why aren't you like me? You must share. Anybody that's got thinking strengths when they take it has to share what that movie inside their head. Otherwise, people don't make the journey with you. And then they don't understand why you're doing what you're doing.
Mhm.
So, yeah. One last thing about the Strength Finder report. I pulled a couple statements out of Courtney's relator. Coach Weidenbach is the coach in the book Destination Unstoppable. And if you look at Courtney's first of all, talk about a great coach. You sometimes use sound reasoning. That's a good idea to identify the basic components of a complicated process stuff. You describe types of intricate things a way people can consume. Oh, that sounds like a good coach. Occasionally you direct your attention to specific points. That sounds like a good coach. Coach's description is different, but equally useful as a coach, right? So the reason I'm sharing this is to highlight one of the advantages of the Strength Finder is they studied 2 million people looking for patterns of excellence, came up with thousands of statements. When you take it, it then creates your own customized description for your top 5. So you and I could share the same top 5 strengths and our reports would not read the same. So that's another reason I like it.
What are some of the prominent strengths for coaches in general?
So coaches in general, and I've got 435, something like that in my database. At this point, it's not uncommon to find learner because you're an imparter of knowledge. It's also true in teachers. Achiever, you work hard, right? Responsibility, do the right thing. I haven't looked, I should have looked today. Out of the 450-ish, 435, whatever, there were only 3 women with competition in the top 5. Meaning 3 women coaches that have competition in their top 5. You guys are in the business of developing people, and that comes across in a lot of the talents that you see where there's a lot of and what there's not so much of. In Courtney, there's not a lot of discipline. So it's good that you have it, because neither athletes or coaches have much of it. So just a little bit of encouragement. I don't even think you need to be an apprentice. I think you should jump right into it. I wanted to mention, because I know you met Frank
Yes.
Raymond, right? So Frank was on the team. This was the team I worked with for 2.5 years, because it was postponed a year for the Olympics, which you all know. And Frank is, with that little arrow by his head there, was the strength conditioning guy. And I love Frank. I work with him every month, and I have for 2 years with my own conditioning and life goals. We meet online. He added so much to the team. There was a lot of strife, and Frank could delicately position conversation in a way that made it possible to talk about some of the things that the team was struggling to talk about. And I am so grateful for his many contributions to the team.
Yeah, now he's gonna be working with Canoe Kayak Canada as a strength coach.
Right. Yeah. So you guys are going to be seeing him out in California, and Courtney, you already met him, right?
Yeah.
Did you find him warm and friendly?
Yeah, very outgoing.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Delightful.
Absolutely.
Delightful.
Yeah.
So I think I've got 2 last ones, and then we'll stop. This is a team that started the season 3-6, and everyone's having a cow. Oh, what's wrong with the team? What's wrong with the team? Well, there were multiple things wrong with the team. But when we made the journey, it was more of the win like a girl journey in this case. What are you afraid of? How do we overcome that fear? What strengths do you have to find bravery? Because what is not common in the female athlete profile is the strength called self-assurance, and that is raw self-confidence. And so when they just aren't as good at standing up for themselves when they need to or should. So long story short, we did the normal journey with more emphasis on understanding our mental voice, a cycle of getting feedback and acting on it, even if it's hard at first to try something new, right? And they turned the season around and won the state championship. So even without the strength finder, which it helps, young people in general are not as self-aware, and it helps them understand themselves. And that is a ginormous value proposition. Once we did that, and then we, what does success look like? Team trust bank. And there was already a social media fracas in the beginning between the seniors on the team, right? All these things happen, life happens, and it tears the team apart. So we can't have that. So that's the journey we took them on. Finally, I want to make a point about my book. Destination Unstoppable is available. The other one isn't, but I like what you guys did, Rob and Courtney. You bought one copy and you shared it.
Yeah.
So what?
Yes, we did.
Yes, and I'm good with that. So
Yeah.
what I want to be clear about this is, do you guys know what I make for every book sold on Amazon? What do you think?
Not much.
What do you think not much is?
I don't know, $1.
72 cents.
All right.
So I care more that it gets to the right people than I care about the 72 cents. So here's my request. If you guys buy, some, great, but make it the Traveling Book Club. Write your name on the inside, Coach Courtney, Coach Rob, and share it. And just have it be the Traveling Book Club and put your names on the inside and share it with other people.
All right.
Okay? How's that sound?
Yeah.
Good idea.
All right. Here, we'll talk about this after. I've got to save the date. If you take the strength finder, I'm going to do a workshop, but let me
Yeah.
pause there and answer any questions, because I've done all the talking here.
Yeah. Okay. So what about balance? Like you often hear about, work-life balance, or, trying to strike a balance when you're training or in school, and et cetera, et cetera. Like, what's your feelings on that.
Well, I think they're all important, right? All of us are juggling something, right? Now, I will be the first to say with Achiever in my top 5, which is I do not manage well at all. I do not have very good work-life balance, right? So I'll be the first to say that. It's my choice though, right? I don't have family. I don't have to worry about it. I can do whatever I want. But that isn't the case for everybody. So in terms of strengths, what does success look like as a student? What does success look like as a parent? What does success look like as an athlete, as a coach? And then take your top 5 strengths and say, how can I manage these better, right? If you simply write down the 3 things you're struggling with each one, the 3 things that are going well, and then look at your strengths and say, okay, I'm struggling with this. I'm good at this. What can I start doing this week to shift just a little bit those things that I'm struggling with in terms of balance? But you've got it. It's easier to do that with your natural talents than it is with things you don't have, right?
Yeah. Okay.
I see a question in the chat. Should we address that, Miss Haley? You're the boss.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so Amrita, am I saying that right? Amrita asked, I said my fully exploited strengths are far greater than your marginally improved weaknesses. How do you make sure that an athlete's weaknesses don't hinder their performance in the overall sport? Yeah, so I think first of all, it's a great question. And overall, though, nobody's great at everything. Nobody's great at everything. Not when you look at every aspect. And golf's an easy one. Somebody doesn't putt as well, but they drive so close to the green that it doesn't matter. Or they don't hit the ball straight, but they do this differently, and it all balances out. You have to achieve greatness in your own way. But if it is hindering your performance, then you got to work on it, right? A golfer that's not a very good putter still has to putt at some point, right? So you want to get better at it so that it doesn't hinder your overall performance. But is it a weakness or is it something you're not good at yet, right? There's a difference. So a weakness would be, in my opinion, a quarterback that can't run, right? At some point, they're going to have to run like heck. So they better have another tool in the toolkit. And it might be how well you throw. It might be whatever, outthinking them. But you better, at some point, you're going to have to run. So if it's something that is required, so I have low harmony, it's way down at the bottom. I am more combative by nature. I can get a little bit better at it, but I'll never be as good as somebody that's at the United Nations. So I probably don't belong there, right? So from my standpoint, your physical goods are your ticket to the game, and you've got that. Or you've got the talent for it, and you're working on it. But the inside game needs just as much focus as the outside game. So there is, though, a balance, right? If you physically can't do the sport or certain important aspects of the sport, that's a problem. And when I worked with these boys on the high school team, I said, if you can throw a baseball 100 miles an hour, is that a strength? And they said yes. And I said, if you can't hit a target, is it a strength or a liability? It's actually a liability if you can throw a baseball and can't hit the target, right? You're going to hit everybody else, and that's a liability. So you got to dial things down, dial things up. So there's a lot. It's very complex, and performance is complex. But I would argue that knowing your internal motor is just as important as understanding your physical talents and what you can do with that. So when I was speaking about the marginally improved weaknesses, it's really more about the inside game, but it impacts the outside game. But there is still the outside game aspect of it, right? You're bigger, faster, stronger. Maybe I'm littler, but I'm more agile, right? That sort of thing.
I think I have kind of like an example of that we talked about, that my decision making is very slow, or I would just say that I'm like not very good at making decisions. And the strategy that we came up with, what would that be, that I'm not good at making decisions? Like my achiever is low, or I'm
I think it was really more that you were focused on the process, and you don't want to make a mistake.
Mhm.
And is it the right decision, right? And but you found, I think what we found was through your intellection was the thing that runs and runs and runs and runs and thinks and thinks and thinks.
Yeah,
and
like
thinks
my
and thinks.
brain just keeps thinking and I
Right.
have high intellection, but I found that maybe combining a couple of my top strengths, so like discipline, and I can't remember the other one, but like combining them together to make like a deadline and
Correct.
to give myself time, like knowing that I need time with intellection, and then then I'm able to like make decisions better and not like waste so much time and
Right.
mental energy trying to make decisions. I think that's like a decent example of explaining like how to kind of combine your strengths to like make up for something that's maybe a bit lower
Right.
down.
No, that is, and they do combine, right? And two
Mhm.
strengths can look like another strength. So that's exactly what you just described, which is a great way to say it. And the other thing to know is if you knew Courtney's strengths, and intellection is one of them, excuse me, she needs time to think. So if you're coaching her and you're a snap, snap, snap kind of decision person, and you're like, Courtney, what do you think? And you want a decision right now, Courtney's never going to be at her best in that circumstance. So when I know that I'm working with thinkers, I send the material out ahead of time so they can think about it. Then they can bring their best game. I am more of a snap, snap, even though I have thinking strengths as well, but I am a let's go do this and jump, right? And but people that are thinkers need time to think, to give their best game. So honor that once you know that about them, right?
That's good.
Yeah, and I feel like another way like that's so great about doing the strength finder and knowing what people's strengths are within a team is that you can rely on another person that might be high in a strength that you are low in.
Mhm.
And I think that
Partnership is key.
helps.
I would pick you to be my harmony partner.
Mhm.
All right. Remember this guy I worked with who said
Yeah.
when I was at IBM, he said that Microsoft Word has a spell checker and a grammar checker, but you need a diplomacy checker. And he had harmony. And he was
Yeah.
so high in harmony that if you've ever watched the show Everyone Loves Raymond, he couldn't watch it. It was too conflicting, combative. I think it was a hilarious show, but it is full of insults, right? So that didn't work well for him. But yeah. And you're honoring that person's strengths. I could come to Courtney and say, read this for me. Is this combative? Right? And she would go, I think it is. And I'd be like, okay, help me fix it. Because I don't want to be ineffective, right? I want to be effective. So
You're allowing people to do their role, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
let them bring it. You're nobody's great at everything, right?
Yeah. So when you get resistance, and you mentioned this at the beginning, how our general culture is, remediation based and fix this, fix that, and so the difference between Courtney's age and me, right? Like we're like 25 years apart or whatever. That as I said at the beginning, I'm so happy that I've kind of found this again. And even though she loves it, her age or younger people are generally resistant to it because they haven't grown up that way. And there's research to back that up, right? With Buckingham. And so you might not get like, hardcore resistance, but you might get some subtle resistance. Like, this isn't how I've grown up learning in school or sports or whatever. So would you have any strategies around getting that general acceptance or?
Yeah, let's talk about that, and particularly with young people. And Karen has asked a question: how would I introduce this process into a team of U18s? People like to learn about themselves. They like to read the report. I start with, would you like to be a higher performing team? And the answer is always yes. Would you like to be a better athlete? Yes. And I start with them taking the assessment, and they get so excited about reading the results that it flows from there. And that I have seen it transform teams that were so broken that they were not willing to speak to one another. And we're all in the same room. Now I'm fine with combat, right? Because I'm low harmony, but I'm also very straightforward that we are going to start saying hello to one another in the hallway, or there'll be consequences if you don't, right? And that's what needs to happen. And that was a professional environment, so it's not the same. But I have found that people really like learning about their strengths. And I think in general, people appreciate the idea that there is fuel on the inside that we want to tap to make them great on the outside. and we have to study it just like we study any tactic in any sport or any technique in any sport. But once they read their stuff, it's just so much fun for them to hear. I hear all the time, oh, it's so me, and they're so excited. And even the boys are, right? So I think beginning with it and saying, I want to understand you better. I want to get the best out of you. And if I know you're the cosmos within, then I'm better at that, helping with that. So that's typically how I do it. But with the idea that it's going to help them perform better and win.
Okay, yeah, great. And just with following up with that, your answer and Karen's question on U18s, like a part of your book, in the latter half of the book, you go back and you interview a bunch of the hockey players, and those chapters are gold, because it was just so interesting what they said and how mature they were. And I mean, there's coaches on the call. We all work with U18s across the board. That's our main demographic for club coaches. And we all know how mature our kids are, but if you just tap into it and
Right.
ask the right questions and share some information, share this, like they'll just spill. And it was amazing what came out in those pages with these
Right.
with these athletes. And we have athletes just like that. So
You absolutely do.
yeah.
I've done as young as 13. Younger than that, they haven't had quite enough life experience to answer the questions in the Strength Finder, probably. Right. There is a kids version. I worked with a 10-year-old hockey team. And let me tell you, that was a blast. It's called Strength Explorer, and it gives you 3 talents. And what it does is help you focus on something besides winning too, right? And scoring. But the notion that I'm gonna take a tool that can measure how you think to solve problems, and they then begin to see that, and how other people are different, and they begin to see that, because I do a lot of analysis. The values in the dialogue around the results, though. You can have conversations. So I'll have, and I have forms in the book that support this dialogue, right? But if you have somebody that isn't coachable, doesn't appear to be coachable, that is not your problem. That is their problem. So which of their top 5 strengths can we tap on to be better at listening to feedback and acting on feedback, right? So now they've got a toolkit rather than this sense of dread that the coach is angry at me and that sort of thing. So. Quick answer to Karen on the via character strengths. It's less talent focused and more character focused, right? It's very useful. I'm for any assessment that will help you better understand yourself and others understand you. But it isn't, you don't get how you think to solve problems. And it's by Gallup. Gallup is such a statistical company. So it's a technically validated survey. That's why you get the results that are similar over and over again. You also don't get the customized report unless you pay for it. So you're going to pay for it upfront or not. But I'm fine with whatever you're using, as long as if you're able to create a conversation with an athlete and a team conversation with a bunch of athletes that is helpful. That's the way it goes. I've just been using this since 2006. And how often do we look at athletes and think, what were they thinking? And now we get some insight into it, because it measures 8 different ways you think to solve problems, right? And some people like data, some people like information, and there's a difference between data and information in terms of analytical. And some people are creative, like Coach Stott, and that it just doesn't have that same level of discretion on that, what I call the rocket fuel on the inside, in my opinion. But anything that you can help a team be better and an athlete be better, go for it.
So at the end of your other answer from the last question, you mentioned feedback. So what does feedback look like in a strength-based world? I know there's lots of different things out there, but how would you define effective feedback?
Well, I think one of the things that I try to explore, and I've got kind of a core module about, one of the things people hate to hear is, would you like some feedback? That generally puts the defenses up, right? Oh God, here it comes, all the things I've, done wrong. All feedback is a gift, even if it isn't packaged well. But there is a cycle of feedback, acting on the feedback, failing to do well the very first time I try it, assessing the failure, tweaking it, trying again, more feedback. That cycle, if you can complete it quickly and repeatedly, is what makes people great. I don't care if it's piano, writing, software, or sport.
Can
So
you say that again?
there's a cycle
Yeah.
of feedback and fear and pain associated with each step. First of all, getting feedback from a coach is painful and fearful. Some of us would rather not get any. I just want to compete, right? Then you have to choose to act on the feedback, which means you have to go outside your comfort zone and try something new. You fail. Nobody's great the first time they do something. You assess that each step is painful and you'd like to exit the system. So I help them find courage and bravery. We don't make fear go away. We find sources of bravery to stay in that cycle and try and try and try again. Take a step back. Don't be too close to it. In other words, you're judging based on the last 5 minutes, not the progress over 3 or 4 games, right? So there's a cycle in there that is important that athletes must embrace to grow quickly. And coaches can help them when we know the internal motor and can tap that on purpose. So if I know somebody has a learner, I can talk about what they're going to learn. If I know they have futuristic and they're thinking about the future, I'm like, imagine what this will look like 6 months from now. It's the same stuff. I'm just packaging it in a way they can hear it.
Right.
And stay in that cycle and not exit because it stinks sometimes.
Interesting.
In Win Like a Girl, I've got a section on feedback because everyone coach has their own thing. The positivity sandwich, right?
Yeah,
This or that. And the Olympic coaches I worked with, one of them said, I don't, especially with women, I either give them correction or praise, not both. Because when I give them praise and correction, they hear correction. They never hear the praise.
Right.
And what about for boys? Like, how is it different with feedback?
I think it still always goes down to the individual level.
Yeah.
What I find though is I can be more forceful with male athletes when I am telling them that what they're doing is not acceptable. Now, having said that, and it's always about hurting the team, right?
Mhm.
So I think did I mention to you I got the text from the boy that started his career in the penalty box and ended it in the penalty box?
No.
He's a 9th grader when I started with him. Good, likable kid, okay? Constantly in the penalty box. If you looked at him, he retaliated if you're on the other team, right? And so, and the moment the ref went by, his mouth is running. So he starts his career in the penalty box. And we would have conversations about, and he came up with his own answers. See, I believe in athletes coming up with solutions. You explain the expectations. I expect you to keep your mouth shut and say nothing but hello and thank you to the ref, right? But they have to come up with their solution. So one solution he came up with, because he had algebra in his sophomore year, was if he turned his skates 45 degrees, he could skate away. I'm like, well, then for God's sake, Ronan, skate away. All right. So for that got better, but in each year was like 10% better, but always in the penalty box. And in his senior year, which was graduated last June, they are about to win the state championship. 9 seconds left. Ronan gets a penalty. And I'm like, oh my God. Right. And he's laughing. He thinks it's hilarious. So I'm like, Ronan, I thank God the 4 years are over. Right. And you can go wherever you're going to go. Well, out of nowhere in July, I get a text, or maybe it was in the fall, middle of the night. And it's Ronan. I never thought, of all the people I'd never hear from again. And he said, I just played my first junior hockey game and I applied everything you ever taught me. And it kept me in the game. Like,
No more penalties.
like, oh my God, no penalties, right? It's first game ever, possibly. And so you never know where some of the things are sticking in. But sometimes they're a little bit harder because of the more battling energy, that red stuff, competition, significance, then it takes them a little longer to get there.
Okay, good.
And it's a generalization, I'm saying, but
So I see a difference between like a hockey team and our like our paddling teams or our canoe clubs. Just because our canoe clubs have such an individual aspect to them, like we sometimes have to, or we do have to compete against each other to
Right.
make a team or make a crew boat. So is there any differences in like the process that you do for like a team that's like a hockey team or a soccer team versus a team that's like more individual, but they train together? And
Yeah,
like,
and
is any,
that's,
are there any challenges that are different?
I think it is. And you know, even the women's foil team, it's like gymnastics. They compete against one another. They train with each other. Then they compete against each other in the individual competition. And then they have to come together and compete as a team against
Mhm.
Russia and Korea. And I mean, it is way more complex, right? Or tennis, where sometimes you're a doubles partner, but you still got this collection of people around you, right? You've got coaches, you've got strength and conditioning people, you've got psych, you've got physio. I consider that all the team. And so everybody does it when we do it, right? But at the end of the day, it's still the same concept. What is inside of you that gets the very best out of you, right? And knowing that we're all partners on this life journey, right? So I can help you. There's things we may have to do to help the team win that I don't want to do right now, but I'm going to do it, right? Because it's what needs to be done to help the team win. But it is more challenging, but it's still about know thyself and to thy own self be true, and then get to know the strengths of others so you can appreciate the value they bring, and that the two of you together might be, it's 1 + 1 = 3. Right. So you see, Michael has put a question in
Sure.
on Amazon. Lovely Amazon. What would we do without
Yeah.
Amazon, right?
So
Um,
we
thank
talked about resistant, mildly resistant people before. What about the culture vultures, the people that are highly
Yeah.
resistant?
It's awful. And I frankly, this is where consequences have to come in. And there has to be a line where, in my opinion, and I've been on teams where I would have not included that person on the team. And it's hard to get there. You do everything you can, but they are hurting the team more than they're helping the team. And I would rather lose than put up with that and have a whole system get poisoned, because sometimes there's a pipeline and they're poisoning the younger people that are coming up behind them. So this is on the coach to set high expectations and enforce them. You can't, but you must set the high expectations. You cannot expect people to hit a target. There's a reason we have targets in archery or any sort of other shooting thingy. They can't hit it if it isn't clear. So clarity of expectations is essential. This is how this team does things. So culture is there. It's either created by you or it's created by them, right? And that means everybody. And as they say, culture eats strategy for lunch. And you can have strategy all you want, but that culture will undermine it. But it's really about holding one another accountable. And this is where there's a team trust bank. You can flag it. That was a withdrawal from the team trust bank. We're not doing things like that on this team. And you can have other pressure by other athletes. I refuse to let you fail. And sometimes the peer pressure, but that sometimes requires very strong. I've seen it happen when women teams more than male teams. The team unwilling to stand up to a really strong woman who is ruining the team. So it's important. But as a coach, you own the culture.
Yeah. Okay, very good. So I think some takeaways, I think, as we're coming towards the end. So a few questions to wrap up. And if anyone has a question they want to ask, get it in soon.
And don't forget that I want to hold an event. If people take the
Yeah,
strength
well,
finder.
we can mention that at the end.
Okay, I'm sorry.
This isn't the end. We're just like, this is like the finish. We got like 125.
Okay, so
days to
I have activator too. I get a
go.
little pushy.
But how could one, I mean, obviously, the strength finder is the ultimate way to go about it, but how could somebody, this weekend or tomorrow, just start to probe their own strengths or the strengths of their partners or athletes? Like, what questions could they ask or whatever?
There's a lot of questions you can ask. What do you enjoy most about your participation in sport? There are people that want to win and there are people that want to be part of a team,
Yeah.
right? Or they want to achieve excellence, or they like to work hard, right? What do you enjoy? When have you felt most valued as an athlete or a coach?
Mm.
Right? And those are questions at the back of Destination Unstoppable, by the way. When have you felt least valued? And if you get to the point, you're getting to the point where the stuff that bugs them is getting the work done right versus the relationships, or I just hate losing, right? Then you're getting to the strengths. But it's through dialogue, and it still is about dialogue. If a coach sat down with an athlete and read wow, this is a very interesting webcast. And read those reports they get, or the via character one or whatever. It's the dialogue, the questions, Q&A, man, the gold's in the dialogue. And even just asking those kinds of questions, you'll get gold out of it.
Yeah. So then further to that, what are some things someone could do, tomorrow, just to start investing in the human system, like outside of what we just spoke about?
In terms of like the team trust bank and that sort of thing, that's
Well,
where
yeah,
I would
just
start.
anything related to what we've talked about, like what would be, something that they could do to jumpstart this kind of process, other than, what you just talked about with strengths, like.
Yeah. So what if you sat down with your team and said, and the team being whoever it is, right? It can be two people, I don't care. But what does success look like?
Yeah.
What does success look like? Not just the what you want to achieve, but the how we work together to get there. What are the behaviors we want to exhibit as part of our work together? What do we represent? What do we stand for? You can always go to just Google list of values and pick your top 4 and say, these are my values. So there's any number of ways you can use content to have a discussion around that sort of thing. You can institute a team trust bank and say, here's how you know what a deposit or withdrawal is, because it can be a little bit confusing. Ask someone to put on a Post-it, what are the characteristics of the best teammates you've ever had? Unselfish, right? Kind, positive. What are the characteristics of the worst teammates you've ever had? Unselfish, not unselfish. You get the opposite.
Mhm.
It's easy to have that list and go, okay, those are withdrawals and those are deposits. We know what they are. Therefore, it's a choice. And culture is the choice. It's how things get done.
That's right. And Win Like a Girl. Did you have anything more to add on that project? I know that's your most recent passion, but are you able to sum up what that's all about?
It is the program I've created to build confidence in female athletes so that they become champions at the long game of life. And it's based on the work I started in 2019 and I continue today. So when I work with the female teams, it's Win Like a Girl, right? And the book is called Win Like a Girl Project, and it describes the why and then an entire season with a female team. And but my goal is to create a certification program for coaches, sport coaches, to learn the process, and also just enough about the Strength Finder to run it with your team. You do not have to be an expert. I didn't become certified in Strength Finder until 2015, and I'd been using it since 2006. And in between 2006 and 2015, 15,000 people I worked with at IBM. So you don't need to be certified. And coaches get the importance of understanding the internal motor. That's easier to teach. So, and then a course, a 10-week course that people can run on their own. So that's all starts Monday on top of getting the book published. So I am starting on a 90-day sprint, they call it. Don't even get me started. It's an accelerator for small business.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens. And I'm not structured. So this is really hard. So I'm paying them a lot of money to make me do this for 90 days.
Great. So you had a proposition for everyone with respect
Yeah.
which is super generous. You want to hit the screen there?
Yeah. It's very simple.
Okay.
So if you guys take the Strength Finder, I'm proposing that I hold a free debrief with you. I propose the date of Tuesday, March 22nd. Are you guys back from California then?
Oh, no, but
You're not?
no.
When are you back?
Everyone on this call will be somewhere south.
That sounds so wonderful. Um,
It does right now, yes.
when will you guys be back?
Well, April.
Okay, then why don't I do it then? Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
yeah.
Okay, of course I could have run the date past you. How about this? A date to be determined.
Yeah,
If you take the strength finder, I'll do a Zoom, you send me your results, and I'll do those high level analysis, right? I won't share the individual so that people don't feel they may not want the results shared. Everyone learns at a different rate, but I'll
Yeah.
share, this is how many people had achiever, this is what our pie chart looks like, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. So I'm happy to do that. So you just have to send me your top 5 results and I'll send you the invite. We'll do a Zoom meeting.
okay, great. That's
Yeah,
super
how's that sound?
generous. Really appreciate that. And for connecting with you, you've got your website, maureenmonte.com.
Yeah, maureenmonte.com. Let me put it in here.
Are you on Instagram or Twitter? Or
I'm on
anything else?
Twitter. I think it's Maureen.
You tweet?
I do. I tweet about sports.
Okay.
And I'm on LinkedIn.
What's your Twitter handle?
I think it's Maureen Monte. I don't know. I only go out there every day.
I think I tried
Um,
searching you, couldn't.
Tweet me. And then I've got Destination Unstoppable Facebook.
Okay.
On Facebook, right? And I got a Win Like a Girl project on Facebook too.
Okay.
Happy to connect. There's more details about Win Like a Girl and Destination Unstoppable on my website. But I'm happy to connect, and if I can help you with you or your teams, I'm happy to do that as well. So
Wonderful. Thank you.
you're
So
welcome.
can you stay on the call here, Maureen? Just so we can say our goodbyes after we formally conclude here. Thank you, Courtney. That was pretty good.
You guys did well.
You're a good team for being like opposite. So
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Yeah,
We're
thank
gonna
you.
be doing this throughout the next couple of years during her apprenticeship, doing these occasional webinars and various topics. Now we get to do like the physical stuff next,
We'll
right?
see. We'll see.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.